All right, Javier, we have a one-on-one match for WrestleMania. Maybe, likely. It seems like it should be. Cody Rhodes regaining the championship. And the dogs are happy about that.
Hi.
They're actually fighting over food right below my feet. Yes, so Cody Rhodes defeating Drew McIntyre. A lot of chaos. They entertain all kinds of the finishes all kinds of scenarios that we've been speculating about for weeks that could play out with different teases. But ultimately, Cody got the win. And we don't know what Drew's fate is, but we know that Randy Orton and Cody are going to have a contract signing next week. Do you think it is? You held your fingers up on our YouTube show here. Our podcast listeners didn't see that, so I'm informing them of that. Your fingers are crossed. It stays one-on-one. I don't mind Cody Randy. I know there's some people who are for it, some people who I think, rightfully have some concern about it for various reasons, but I think is it the best of the singles matches that were on the table that were turnkey enough in the last 6 weeks here?
Yes, I think with the people involved, I believe so.
Yep.
With the people involved, if it wasn't going to be, I was pulling for what would have been like 6-man. Just get everybody in there because that I think would have made it more. Yep. In any case, it's not going to be your primary main event. So.
Yep. Yeah. So a few ways we can go with this. One. Was there? No, I'm gonna go with this. Let's talk about Cody Randy. We'll talk about how they got there in the match in a second. There's a history here. Cody's a babyface. Randy's a babyface right now. So we have two WrestleMania singles men's world title matches. All 4 of them are baby faces. It's face-face matchups. Do you think by the time we get to WrestleMania that is still true? It's one-on-one, and no one turns heel.
The way that they did the skit with Sami Zayn and Randy Orton makes me think that Orton's going to be taking on more of a heelish role, but I don't think he's going to be like a legend killer. He's going to push people towards Cody, but not like in a way where he's insufferable. I don't think. I think they're more happy just to have these two just wrestle each other because honestly, because if you go full bore heel with Randy and he just RKO's him out of nowhere, from now until WrestleMania, I think you run the risk of the people just popping for that because that's kind of like they want to see the RKO, they want to see that kind of stuff. I think if they just play him like what he told Sami Zayn, where it's just it's business, and sometimes you have to do business a certain way. I think that's what was to set the ground where he's going to take a heelish tinge, but not full blown, so that he's not like a babyface coming out of it at the other end.
There's history with Cody and Randy in Legacy. Randy has laid the groundwork for this being the year of Randy Orton, his year that he wants to add to his title, move into sole possession of third place for most world title wins. And I think it's been good that they've been laying the groundwork for that. I mean, my tendency now is to think, and we'll probably get some reporting on this, if not us, others, on whether this was when the title change happened. Like this was the date they circled. It's happening exactly as they planned. They expected all this speculation and chaos in the meantime. It's also possible it's an audible, and they sense people were thinking they were really down on Drew against Cody, and they decided to just book this coming out of the chamber. First, I guess I'll pause. What do you think? Do you think this looks like a master plan or an audible?
I think that it was a master plan where they had to audible out of a lot of stuff because of injuries that happened. My gut reaction is because they started teasing this like right at meaning Randy Orton and Cody, right after Cena won the Cody won the title back from Cena, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So, but along the way, I think that there was supposed to be a feud with Drew McIntyre, and then it was supposed to go somewhere else involving Jacob Fatu. And maybe other people, because there were several injuries that happened. I can't remember off the top of my head, what the order was. Yeah. I think that what ended up happening was because they had to plug McIntyre back into the scenario, they were going to stretch that feud on for too long. And in that case, it made sense to do the swap of the title to basically make Drew a transitional champion, because you can't also continue beating you can't continue having Cody beat Drew. I think Drew was plugged in. It was supposed to be a feud, but he was also a plug-in for. My guess was Jacob Fatu, when he had to take that time off. But yeah, so again, I think ultimately this was likely because we were mainly talking about Randy Orton and Cody at WrestleMania, and then the talk became Randy Orton and Roman Reigns. I think those were really, from their perspective, from the WWE's creative, I think that was their only two real possibilities, with everything else being, or favored possibilities, with everything up being in the air due to the, craziness of the stuff that happened in between.
So the marketing here shifts away from Drew McIntyre again if it stays this way, and as a caveat. But for now, we just have to go with that. It is a story of Cody becoming champion, wanting to retain the title. It's a story of Randy wanting to add to his total. I'm trying to think of what the key talking points are now to fill the next 5 SmackDowns. There's really 4 more, and then the last one is sort of, a pre-WrestleMania final emphasis on things. But they have to tell over a month of stories here, 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks of stories. And they have moving parts with Nick Aldis, Drew McIntyre, Sami Zayn, and Jacob Fatu. I think that covers it. So I don't think they're just ever. I don't think Fatu, who was interfered in this match, Sami, who had chats with Drew and Cody, compelling chats with Drew and Cody, and showing a temper and getting life lessons from Randy, setting off Cody a little bit, and then Sami trying to calm himself and Cody down. There's so much going on there. I mean, I'm still haven't wrapped my brain around, because I've been thinking about and writing about so many of these possibilities of where this goes, and I'm still not ruling out it ends up being more than one-on-one. But if it is one-on-one, I still think we're going to be hearing from Sami and Jacob and Aldis in the meantime, right? In some form or fashion.
Yeah, and Drew McIntyre.
Yep, the ex-champ for sure. He's going to have a lot to say about the way this match went.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's always a possibility if they're going to keep them straight up babyface, because what they like doing is then they team up against issues that they're getting. So maybe Drew, Sami Zayn turns heel, teams up with Drew, and then it's Drew and Sami versus Cody and Randy, heading, for a week or two, where you have the incidental bump and then the RKO, and that's kind of almost par for the course what they do when it's a babyface babyface or heel versus heel. You team them up for a bit. That would be my gut reaction of what they would do. But yeah, I think ultimately that's going to be involving Zayn most likely. I don't know. I don't know if Drew just takes a bit of time off and a week or two, and then just to sell the. He's done that a few times. As soon as he loses, he's off in Scotland doing videos on social media. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. So I'm kind of thinking through as you're talking to the match itself, and what is Drew's argument? What is his anger going to be based on? His gripes, because that's his full-time job is griping about things not going his way. Although Sammy's giving him a run for his money a bit right now, but in a different way. Is it, because I'd have to remap out the match in my head and replay it, but is there a pivotal moment where Drew can look at all this and say this should not stand, that there needs to be something that gets him back in the title picture, that isn't easily countered by Aldis? Because he can't go, I was about to use a chair. What was an ODQ match, right?
Was it? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure.
It was the ref didn't call for the bell when Drew held on to the ropes. But I don't think they stressed much. Chat, help us out there, because that was something that I wasn't sure of late in there. But if Drew was about to use the a chair and Jacob Fatu stopped him, I don't think it's a really strong argument for CJ LaChapelle says yes, it was an ODQ match. That's not a good argument for, well, now I deserve a rematch. Although he can say it was legal, so therefore it was unfair because I could use a chair, but Aldis can just go, well, it's an ODQ, so Jacob can interfere. It's that's legal too. there's nothing that happened with that. CJ is saying that the ring announcer said it can only end by pin or submission. I guess that was to stop Drew from intentionally getting disqualified to hold his spot at WrestleMania. So anyway, I'm trying to think through in real time right after the show here, like, what is Drew's argument to be back in the title picture and to try to complicate matters? Because the whole time I'm watching this, I was thinking, okay, if Cody wins, there's going to be something that Drew is going to argue about to try to get himself back in it. And now, you wonder, is a Drew McIntyre Nick Aldis match on the table? Does Drew throw a fit, go after Nick, and then we get Drew versus Nick also, and maybe Sammy against Jacob? Maybe they just split everybody off into singles matches. So yeah, Javier, your thoughts on some of those stray thoughts that I have on this?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned. I did think Aldis and McIntyre was going to be WrestleMania. With how much they've been pushing the animosity between the two. Drew based on what happened in the match, Drew can talk himself in. Outside interference, and referee got hit. Of course, the counter is that it was his fault. But the thing is that the way that the match was set up, the story of the match at least, it felt like it was ending the storyline that he had told. They went back to Dan Angler, being the referee that came in after Robinson was taken out, which McIntyre already had issues with. So he had that moment where was like, "Oh, are you going to screw me again?" So that felt like an end to that, a capstone to that to that part of the story. And then Jacob Fatu this time coming in to help Cody when he was the one who cost him to lose in the first place. So it just felt like it was more like we're bookending this feud for now. And, Drew can just now take his animosity of like, well, before I go after Cody again, I have Jacob Fatu, because Jacob Fatu is the one who's still like, bothering me. Maybe I have to take him out. Or, because his story has been escalating, I'm keep getting screwed by management. Well, Aldis is management. So I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe takes out Aldis and injures Aldis, and then Aldis, makes up a match, something along those lines. I could see it escalate, particularly since he did headbutt Angle again. So, if Aldis confronts him and then he headbutts Aldis, that's like, I'm talking myself more and more into the Aldis thing, even though I did think about it while we were watching the show. Yeah. In terms of Sammy, it felt like they were setting up Sammy versus Trick, and they could still go back to that, but instead of babyface Sammy versus a heel Trick, I think they might end up doing a switch between the two of them. But yeah, Sammy's kind of like the question mark, because it feels like they're kind of pivoting with him. I mean, they're telling the story that he's frustrated, he's angry, he's upset with himself. He is hearing from these people saying that, he's the voice of, like, he's the babyface voice. He's the one who's saying, you're his friend. How can you just attack him like that? The same thing that Cody did to me. So he's coming from it from a babyface perspective and saying, hey, maybe being a babyface doesn't pay. So it feels like it's kind of like the corruption ringing in Sammy's head, and the question is whether it's going to be just he struggles through it and comes out stronger on the other side as a babyface, if that's the story that they're telling. But usually in wrestling, that means that he's going to turn heel. That he's going to say, "Hey, it's better do things take shortcuts," kind of like Randy and Cody did.
Yeah, I want to do a whole segment on Sammy in a bit, because I think there's a lot to explore there. I think it is, in some way tangentially, logically related to this, because he chatted with Drew and Cody on the show, and I want to process that, get the chat involved too, and kind of, because I think what you just said, there a couple directions they can go with him, and it doesn't have to happen quickly. I mean, if they're eyeing him for a WrestleMania title match next year in Saudi Arabia, if we're still have airplanes flying across oceans and we're not in World War III and all events are canceled outside of whatever, I don't know, with everything going on, but if that still happens, I think it will, but I mean, you have to put the asterisk next to it with all the nonsense going on right now. I could see this being a long-term story, and I think Sammy has the chops to pull it off. I mean, if they drag this out a long time, I shouldn't say drag it out. If they stretch it out, drag has a negative connotation. with a lot of ebbs and flows along the way.
Yeah, so the only thing that pushes is because you're doing this live in front of an audience is what I think the audience will also push it because the negativity with Sammy, there's a little bit you can hear from the crowd from when they're doing the backstage, it kind of feels like there's a lot stronger negativity than just like a 50-50 kind of thing. So that might also play into it because it'll be hard to tell the story of him being tempted and working things through and having a dark point when people aren't cheering for him not to go to the dark side, as opposed to we're kind of tired of you whining, because that's kind of the feeling I'm getting from the crowd, is that they're tired of him whining. So if that's the way the crowd works, telling that story of him, overcoming, you can still do it, but probably on, like you said, much longer term. And I think ultimately that is the better way if you could turn him, if you're able to actually turn him later, because that way you could tell the story over a longer period of time, because otherwise you kind of have to do it quicker. Like by WrestleMania, he would have to basically choose a position. So, letting him go on a heel run, as long as it's not, I mean, and he could do a good heel where he's the sanctimonious good guy, and just selling that. It's like, how can you, because you can just hear the promos. How can you cheer for Cody, who would stab a person in the back when he was doing the right thing? That kind of, that kind of like, holier than thou attitude would work from him, and then he could just come back and say, "Oh, I screwed up."
Yeah, I want to backtrack too on the show here about and talk about Randy's promo and how he did not bring up that he didn't exactly earn that match as much as he talked about it as a babyface, but later Sami Zayn brought that up, and then Orton said, "Hey, sometimes you have to be selfish." I think that's an interesting talking point also. Let's pause and introduce the show. I'll let you have a sip of water, Javier, and then we'll bring some chat comments in and also bring CJ on to discuss this match and other topics. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show following WWE Smackdown on Friday, March 6, 2026. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show. I am the editor, publisher, and founder of the Pro Wrestling Torch newsletter, going on almost 4 decades. Host of various podcasts, including the Wade Keller podcast with Jason Powell earlier this week. That's our Blue Logo show. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you cannot find our flagship, big topic, centerpiece show each week without subscribing to our podcast feed. So go search Wade Keller and subscribe for free. And while you're at it, you'll see a red logo pop up. Go ahead and subscribe to that. And you'll also get all the shows that are on the post-show feed, which include shows not on YouTube. So you'll want to search Wade Keller and subscribe to both. Again, red logo and blue logo. Blue logo is the one that is podcast only. That includes our weekly flagship. Also, some really compelling interviews from our library, flashback shows, media Q&As, and more. Some of our flashbacks go back 15 years. So it is worth checking out. Just search Wade Keller in your podcast app. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, iOS app, Android apps. You can also stream them from our website, PWTorch.com. I also oversee PWTorch.com and write for it, including my live coverage of Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown with detailed, thorough reports every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I also include analysis of matches and segments in that report. That also has a link in my reports on our website for you to be a caller on this show. So if you're interested in joining us live by audio, only, you can turn off your camera or turn your camera on, which is what most people do. We invite you to do that. You also can email us, wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com is the best way to reach us here after on the post show during Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. You can email during those shows, and then we'll include you on the post show, and you can just listen later to see if your email got included when you listen on the podcast the next day, if that's how your schedule works. wadekellerpostshow@gmail.com. And we also have a live chat, the aforementioned chat, and we invite everybody to continue to join, add commentary and perspective on that in the chat on the topics we're covering or suggest topics. As always, if we get something wrong, point it out. We are not, well, I can't speak for Javier, but I'm not thin-skinned. If I screw up, if I misspeak or genuinely forget something or get something wrong, help us out. It keeps us in check as the show goes on. There's a lot that we're covering, and that happens from time to time. So it's nice to have a live audience fact checking us or steering us in a direction maybe we're not considering in our analysis. All right. I just mentioned Javier's name. Javier Machado is today's co-host, PWTorch contributor. He has worn many hats, including 2 hanging above his head right now in the background. And
a mask.
And he currently, currently contributes WWE PLE previews in the lead up to WWE's PLEs on PWTorch.com. Javier, great to have you here on Friday night again.
Always happy to. It's going to be a long night, Wade. Always happy to join you.
Very good. Fun to have you here. A lot to talk about. Okay, let's bring some chat comments into the conversation, and then CJ, stand by. We'll get to you momentarily. We won't wait so long that you'll fall asleep. Well, it depends on how sleepy you are, but our goal is to not wait so long that it's likely. All right. So let's kind of march through the chats here. Fanner916 says, I hope I changed my mind. Randy just feels past his prime, that unless there's a major twist coming, this match could be boring and definitely not a sell for getting more ticket buys. Javier, let's address that comment for a second. Is the match quality of Cody and Randy a concern here in terms of a part of the fan base going, I don't know. I mean, there's a backstory there, and Randy's a legend, and Cody's, in his prime. But it's going to be that 3-star classic, with a bunch of bells and whistles. Randy and Cody are like the 3.25 star, legends in terms of kind of, that was their ceiling in their prior run. They both have exceeded that at times, but it was sort of their resting face, to use a term, is 3.25 stars for big matches. They're not super great, dynamic athletes, and they're older. Cody's 40, Randy's, deeper into his 40s. So, should that be on WWE's radar? Should fans care? Or is there just going to be enough athleticism over 2 nights and on each night? You know what? They're master storytellers. They're going to have the crowd involved once the bell rings. And it's not going to be Javon or Will Ospreay or, whatever. It's going to be a different kind of match. How do you feel about that aspect of this?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to sell any pay-per-views, but it's a nice match to have. I think it's intriguing enough to be fine with it being on the card. I think Randy Orton has enough of legendary status, enough fans that they're going to be happy to see it happen. I don't think it's going to light the world on fire. I think this is more comfort food than anything. Mm-hmm. The only problem being that this is not a WrestleMania that feels that's on fire. So, the fact you have comfort food in a WrestleMania doesn't feel like it's on fire is a problem for that WrestleMania overall. So this match isn't hurting WrestleMania. I don't think it's also helping it either, unless, things get more personal and maybe, they bring in, bigger issues, but I don't see how they're, I don't really see the point. I think Randy Orton, I don't think you can make Randy Orton the legend killer again. He's way too over with the audience. So,
and Gunther's doing it now, so you don't want him to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about more the attitude than the specific gimmick. You can't do. People are not going to want to see him as like a just evil person. They're going to want that's why I was like really hedging earlier on, saying that he might hit the RKO and give you the smirk, and maybe be like a little bit unfair to Cody, and and it might be setting up, what's the word I'm looking for? Still being the teacher and giving them a hard lesson, kind of thing. But at the end of WrestleMania, they shake hands and go their separate ways, unless they're going to tell a longer term story with Randy Orton. Because if there's a possibility they turn Randy Orton heel, or he goes full blown heel by WrestleMania, or if it's a longer term story and Cody wins at WrestleMania, Randy Orton then RKO's him to set up a longer period of story, and then then that's when you find out that it was Randy Orton who took out Jacob Fatu, that kind of thing, and you find out that there's been a stake in the grass all along. It could be a longer term story, particularly if it's like you mentioned that it's going to be the year of the Viper. If they want to do it that way, you could basically run a Randy Orton heavy story until SummerSlam, and then you start setting up for whatever we're going to do next year at WrestleMania.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine, with the scenario you lay out, that fans would want to boo Randy or would be willing to boo Randy at this point. That's the challenge. So I mean, it's just a warning for WWE if they're thinking of that. I think fans are ready to cheer Randy to the end of his career right now, and it could work against Cody. But I'm curious, if this is the plan they had, title change, have Cody on the chase, but the chase wasn't all the way to Mania. It was just to get, the chase was just to get through January and February. They probably had something in mind all along. We'll see. All right, standard deviation in the chat says, as someone who isn't usually into Randy's work, I thought his promos tonight were phenomenal. Babyfaces often come across as super cringe when selling humility, but Randy came across cool and genuine. So this plays into what I just said. I mean, I just think fans like Randy right now, and I think Randy is believable as a babyface. I think he's believable being comfortable in his own skin. I think that got visited later with Sammy, where he's like, hey, sometimes you got to be selfish. You know what? I'm not going to apologize. You just got to be selfish sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it did seem believable when he said, the people I admired growing up, Ric Flair, Undertaker, Harley Race, and they mentioned JBL saying, if you built a pro wrestler from the ground up, that it'd be him. I don't know. I mean, Randy just felt, I mean, it wasn't quite a Hall of Fame induction, acceptance speech, but Randy is coming across really likable. And then they're playing him off a Trick. And it's interesting because fans really are digging Trick Williams, and they tested Randy opposite a Trick, and I think Randy held the crowd support, even though fans' tendency is to think this is the exciting new guy who's really cool.
Yeah, the on the promo side, I really like the promo because he got over the importance of WrestleMania, the fact he's been in 20 and only been invented 2, so he also played into the importance of the main event. So I thought it was a very, it was about as perfect as you can do a promo where you're not cutting a promo against someone, since we didn't know who his opponent was. So I thought that was great. One thing that Drew said on the Wade said on the on commentary, I think it was Wade who said it, that this is the most comfortable he's seen Randy Orton. I know it was in reference to the fact that he has a spot in the main event at WrestleMania, but it kind of felt like it meant more than that too.
He said he's never seen him more relaxed, was the word.
Yeah. So it kind of felt like it meant more than, like, there's nothing really. He's already done it all, so he's already had the full career. So he's basically just going on borrowed time now. So anything that he does now is just adding to his legacy. So he doesn't. I don't think he has. He doesn't have expectations basically. So he, so he feels comfortable, and he's like, hey, and he's having fun. It seems like he's having fun right now. Talk about Charlotte because later on, because I think Charlotte's also having more fun than before. And that's what it feels like from Randy, which is again why I don't think they're going to go full blown heel with him. Right. The only thing I didn't like is choosing Trick to take the RKO. Because Trick is, he basically came out and got I'll just go ahead and use the word of the night with him. He got done like a bitch. So so I didn't like that with the new talent, and it was like, and it's one of those, it's a Randy Orton special where that the guy's gonna get RKO'd. Which is perfectly fine, but don't do it with the guy that you're trying to get over in Trick like that. So that's about the only one. The only thing I did not like about the whole thing. Use Johnny Gargano, use Miz, use anybody else, but not this guy that you're that's over, and you're kind of like already thinking like, oh well, should we turn him babyface or what's going on?
And his gimmick is he's street smart. Like he's going to be aware of what's going on around him.
That was the other thing.
Be a step ahead. Yeah.
He felt really dumb. That's the other thing. He felt really dumb, like just feeding him the RKO.
I mean, maybe they want him. He's getting more popular than they want, so maybe they want him to seem dumb. So fans are like, well, that guy, I thought he was cool, but now he didn't see that coming. So I guess I'm not as into him. We'll see.
It's a possibility. I'm hoping we're past that age, but
Yeah. All right. Saiti says, not bothered by Cody against Randy, but Sammy versus the Water Bottles is a feud for the ages. Yep, I like that. Fonner says, optimistically, I hope they have a plan. They need to act quickly to heat this up. The Cody-Randy rivalry should have felt bigger than it does right now. CJ says, I'm up for Cody versus Randy, but if Bayley's not on the WrestleMania card, I won't watch. We'll hear from CJ in a moment here. Darrell Freeman says, I want to see how they continue to build Cody versus Randy now. Well, good news, Darrell. They're going to. And you'll get to watch in future weeks. Fatter says, Cody will have to carry the majority of the match. Randy just can't go as he used to. I think he'll be, I mean, I was a little worried in the table collapse. We're going to have a double injury and have to throw things all in the air again, although maybe it would have been the best thing to happen. It might have been the best thing to happen to WrestleMania's card. That's too cynical if Cody and Randy both got hurt, but they'd be forced to move, Trick into the spot or go with somebody else, who's hotter and more fresh. It wouldn't have been, if they made the best of it, I think some fans would ultimately be happier. I don't know. I'm not wishing for it. All right. Funner says, my first thought is if they hadn't spammed the Drew Cody rivalry over the past months, we could have gotten this match on night 1 of Mania. Sure. I mean, but that's not what happened. So, and that is the problem, that where people just said it seems untenable for Drew and Cody to be the main event given all that they had. Real Legend says Cody against Randy is the outcome I was hoping for. Interesting. And so Standard Deviation said, I can't imagine night 1 ending with just a pinfall. I guess with all the moving parts he means. Fonner says, you brought this up. I brought it up. We brought it up. We discussed it. Also, we have 2 major title matches as face versus face matchups. That's incredibly awkward and a potential problem with splitting the audience. So that is something they'll have to address. Barry Wood on a bed says, I think they want Cody to go heel, but the crowd is still like 90-10 cheering, and it ain't enough to pull the trigger. What do you think about that? Like Cody going heel? The crowd's still behind him. They booed him when he went after Trick. They booed him when he went after Sammy. But they're still, and every city can be a little bit different, and every circumstance can be different. But I don't know. Cody's still holding. This is not AEW where the fans were just, clearly turning on him, and it was embarrassing.
Yeah, he hasn't embarrassed himself like he did in AEW as much anyway. That Sammy, his interaction with Sammy, he came across as frustrated, and you could get tired of Cody, that version of Cody a bit, but I think just play it out as much as you can. Because I think the crowd was more with Cody than Sammy tonight. Because Sammy being the whining about the stuff, right. and Cody saying, well, why are you whining, and calling him out, which is what Cody was put in the position of a lot of the fans of the crowd, which is like why are you I wanted to impress you with that word, but it wouldn't come out. Prevaricating. So yeah, it was like it seems like it's more on the Sammy character right now than it is on Cody. That's the other concern with if you try to push Randy Orton as a heel and he starts RKOing him out of nowhere, all day and all night, people can't cheer for that, and they're going to be like, then you're going to end up with a heel Orton that people are cheering, and then a babyface Cody that people are going to boo.
Yeah. All right. Up next, Goodfella says Cody had a good reaction for winning, but it wasn't an overwhelming majority or a passionate excitement. I don't know. Seems to paint by numbers. It's fine. Hopefully the build will be smart and creative. Yeah, during the ring introductions, it wasn't like this overwhelming response for Cody either. And he was really trying to get the crowd fired up. He was, shaking his arms like a babyface in 1981 and, just trying to, through just, pure force, get the crowd psyched up. And it wasn't like crazy like it was not that long ago for him. All right, Fanner says there is just too little time to effectively pull off a heel turn. Randy's officially in legacy babyface status. I'm unsure if Mania's crowd will support Cody over Randy. Standard Deviation says the decision to pivot and take the title off of Cody was smart. It made him feel fresher on the road to WrestleMania. Mark Biscotti says if Cody's win genuinely was planned, man, this sucked. The end of the match looked like the biggest, most obvious audible ever, making it a fail for this wrestling fan. So two countering perspectives there. I do think taking the title off of Cody made him seem fresher as of, March 7th. As of tomorrow, Cody feels fresher being in chase mode for a while and now regaining the title.
Yes, because based on the trajectory they were on, yes. I think the best scenario would have been if they had stronger heels for him to face along the way. And that's an issue that you should have planned for a long time ago. I mentioned a few times where for the longest time in his reign, Cody was feeling as the B story in his own feuds. So his feud with Seth Rollins, it was all about Seth Rollins' storyline. His feuds with, in helping War Games, it was all about, the CM Punk and the stuff. And so all that stuff, he never felt that he was, even though he was carrying around the title, he wasn't the champion because he was helping out other stories. And I think that played into that infamous promo where he mentioned something meta along those lines about, I forgot would you remember what the exact wording was, Wade?
No.
Yeah, so he mentioned something along the episodic. That was the word he was looking.
Okay.
Too episodic. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't used to the way that it conventionally is used.
Yeah, because I think he mentioned because I think what he was going with that was, I'm showing up in other people's shows, and it's not been like the HBO maxi series where like the entire season's about me. And instead it's like, each, everything I'm doing is like, today I'm helping Sammy, today I'm helping Jay, today I'm helping this guy, as opposed to like it being about him. And I think that was kind of like his way of breaking the fourth wall to talk about it. And which was the complaint I was having because he didn't feel important. He was a champion. He didn't feel important.
Yeah. Fonner says, I'm still sensing staleness unless I heat this up very well. That matchup at Mania feels mediocre. Mark Pescetti says a year ago, maybe a year and a half, the WWE product felt like it was growing and at least justifying higher ticket prices. This felt amateur at best. I don't think this is a match that helps in and of itself right now sell tickets because if they were selling tickets based on people imagining what might happen, this narrows it down. And so you're ruling out some things that people might have been hoping for. I'm still not ruling out Cody Orton night one. Drew somehow ends up getting the winner on night. Cody Orton on night one, and then Drew gets the winner on night two. I don't think they'll do that right now based on the story they've told, but I'm just they got a lot of time to fill, and Drew and Aldis have been going at it. And Drew might make some compelling case or do something in the meantime that sparks it. I don't know. Maybe it's Sammy, Jacob, and Drew on night one. Winner gets to face winner of Cody Orton, and then there's all kinds of possibilities on night two. I mean, that's been talked about the last week or so on podcasts I've been on. What do you think, Javier?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
It's you have to find a way to get people on the shows. That's one thing, and I think I mean, it's a little bit cheap, but it kind of feels like it make what's going on each night a little bit more important. And maybe you might be able to get a surprise situation where Cody or Randy wins it one night, and then like a real surprise winner gets it the next night, like Jacob Fatu or Trick Williams or something. And so that's pretty much what I got.
Yeah.
I was trying to fill in that space.
Just letting the dogs just letting the dog in with the headphones turned on full blast. So when I step away, I'm watching two dogs right now. Okay. Let's see. We talked about Aldis against Drew. Mark Pescetti goes, if Aldis is going to wrestle, the audience has been given no reason to know that it's a worthy WrestleMania match. I'm not too worried about that. I think Aldis is a professional. He's physically just looks formidable. They'd have to give more background on him than they have in WWE main roster canon. But I think they could get there and get people interested. But it'd feel like a novelty match until Nick Aldis proved it was otherwise. But my inclination is no. I think they think Aldis is really good in his role. And as much as Drew and Aldis have an issue, I don't know. I'm not strongly against it. It's just once Aldis wrestles, it's sort of there's something about it that feels like it's not the same with him in control if he fought one of the guys he's the boss of. So you do put at risk what's a good thing with him as GM. Yeah,
I mean, I think they've done a lot to really because I've been hearing the rumors about Jessica Carr versus Becky, and I'm like, that kind of feels a little bit out of nowhere. This actually feels a lot more justified. So I think that'd be fine. And it also depends on how they follow up on that.
Another comment from Mark Pischetti here. Just an overall perspective, this WrestleMania feels like almost every idea is falling flat, just uninspired. And next year, they're in Saudi. WWE's playing with fire. They're losing fans over this. Nick Moore says Cody finishing his story for the third time. We'll go back to that. Let me get this one in here. Mark says Cody's act feels very stale. I get that they tried to mix it up, but this was better than if they just went ahead with Reigns against Cody, part 3. What do you think about that comment, Javier?
Were they more positive on Reigns and Cody 3? That comment?
Yeah. Would that have, given where we are now, does it seem like they could have just gone with that and been okay?
I think so, but I think if you didn't have the Seth Rollins injury, I know he's sort of back now, but obviously couldn't build much of the story. If you didn't have a lot of the people go down, Braun Breaker being another big one. I think that you could have gotten Reigns and Cody on one side, and then Breaker and Breaker and CM Punk, or Seth Rollins and CM Punk again, or something like that on the other side. But that's not where it ended up. I mean, again, there's been an ennui, but it kind of feels like it's a transitional period for WWE right now. I think that's a lot of the issue, because you have a lot of people retiring. This kind of just feels like it's like the last hurrah for Randy Orton. The last time he's going to be important for a longer period of time. The one thing I like about the match, it kind of feels like the end of the Randy Orton, who was the top star for a long time, and versus the current star in Cody Rhodes. It has a feel to me of like the later stages of Okada versus Tanahashi, when Tanahashi was already past his prime. That's what this feels like. And even then, Tanahashi won it for a bit. So won the title for a bit. So that's kind of what the impression, the gut, the feel I have for it. I had something else, but it kind of slipped my mind.
All right. Goodfellas says Cody versus Randy could be a smart 4-star match, but it feels very SummerSlam, in my opinion. Fonner adds, I'd rather have seen this match at Mania minus the excessively long and overdrawn feud. So that's that. Okay. Real Legend says they've been teasing Cody versus Randy for 2 years. So I'm excited. Yeah. I mean, they have been teasing for a while. There's a history there. Like I said, I'm not down on this match in and of itself. I mean, the top vote getter in terms of a singles match that we offered in our online poll was Drew McIntyre against LA Knight. I mean, so like Drew being in a match, even a singles match, was not, people weren't super excited about it. Drew and Orton one-on-one only got 7% of the vote. LA Knight got 13%. Drew Fatu got 9%. Drew against Javon got 1%. Drew against Trick got 7%. Drew Cody only got 2%. So, I mean, if Drew's options, the best option is LA Knight, which he's not in play right now for that. I mean, I think it's smart to not have Drew in a one-on-one match. I think they could have made Drew work. For me. Heel face matchup feels novel. I would have been okay with that. But I'm also okay with Cody Orton. All right, let's bring CJ into the program and let him talk. We'll go back to the chat, and we'll also hit on other topics. This is a very big main event, big fallout, big names involved. It's really been the primary topic, with the exception of Punk and Reigns on occasion stealing some of the attention away on the men's side of things. So we'll certainly get to other things on the show. But let's bring CJ on. CJ LaChapelle.
Hey, how are you guys?
Welcome. Good to see you.
Wade.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. I thought it was a pretty good match. Other than I'll never understand what the point of ref bump is in a no DQ match. What's your thoughts on that?
You're saying what are our thoughts on the making it such?
No, what's your thoughts on doing a ref bump in a no DQ match?
I don't think it. I think you mentioned that in the chat. I don't think it matters, right? Because it was just Randy was trying to get an advantage by having. Well, okay, now I see what you're saying. And I'm in one way it doesn't matter, but in the other way it's like, well, now the ref won't see what I'm doing by taking the ref down.
Yeah, that's the typical point of a
I
ref
get what you're
bump.
saying. Yeah. Well, in this case, I think it was let me get out of the way and have Cody hit the ref. And this is the way I was originally thinking. I'm putting my thoughts together now. The advantage it gave him, even though it was apparently no DQ, is Cody got distracted by the ref being down. And that distraction of Cody being preoccupied with that gave Randy an opening to go after him to maybe win. There was a lot in that match, Javier, going on. Was there too much? And your thoughts on the ref bump too, but kind of more broadly, did they overcomplicate this?
A little bit. It kind of felt like a Cody special. You keep saying Randy's Drew.
Thank you. Thank you.
The first ref bump makes sense because Drew was on the back foot. He was about to eat a finisher or one of his signatures, so he gets the ref in the way in order for so he could buy time to regather his senses and not lose from a pinfall. So the first one made sense. Second one made a little less sense because it looked like he did it so he can cheat, but it was no disqualification. It wouldn't matter. But there's also the story that's Dan Angle, which he had been quote unquote feuding with previously. He was the referee that he had assaulted previously, that he accused of screwing things up for him, which which plays into him, just losing his mind and just being frustrated and wanting to take a cheap shot at the referee. Which ended up, biting him. But he's a heel, and heels, do things that are not necessarily the best for them.
The thing that was unforeseeable in the sequence with Drew, not Randy, when Drew pulled the referee into Cody's path, is that Cody ended up giving Drew a crossroads, but the ref was down and couldn't count the pin. That's when Cody got up and called for a second ref, and a new ref ran out. The thing is that wasn't foreseeable. So, when Drew and Cody continued to battle after Drew pulled the ref into the path, and Cody knocked him down. So if the idea was, well, Cody could have won if not for that, thus Drew had an advantage, it was an unforeseeable advantage. Drew might have been the one who landed a Claymore and had the cover, and the ref was down and couldn't count, and that would have screwed over Drew. So there's some mental gymnastics to justify it, other than in the middle of trying to retain his title, Drew decided that he wanted the ref that he didn't like to get hit. So that's where I think you can certainly make the argument. And maybe that wasn't planned or things got through, because it was awkward too, because when Charles Robinson initially almost got hit during the airplane spin by Cody's boot, he was kind of thrown off. He almost got hit in the corner, and that didn't really lead anywhere essential. So I don't know even what the point of that was. Do you think I'm getting the sequence right, CJ, on these as you're recalling the? Okay. So those are my thoughts. Again, so much happened. There's so much going on in the match that by the end, it felt like sometimes they just added static and clutter just for the sake of doing it, like misdirections, Javier. Just a series of micro misdirections.
It was built. It was built backwards. It was built from what they wanted, the result they wanted backwards. Which is fine if you're doing it well. Which again is why the second bump kind of felt more awkward to me. The first one, we've seen it 100 times. It's basically the heel is going to get hit and he throws somebody else in the way. That's all that was. And I think the whole thing lead up to it was just so that Robinson would be out of place so he could be close enough to be grabbed. Because he wouldn't be standing in the places where he was standing if he were like doing the regular match had he not dodged the airplane spin.
So the idea is a ref kind of knows where to be, but that threw him off, and then he just ended up in the wrong spot because of that whole. I think that is what they had in mind. It is the only explanation.
Yeah, except with like Robinson being small, he had to move a lot to get to the positions. So it was like his acting wasn't that great. Because that was one of the thoughts I had. It's like, man, he's supposed to go from the airplane spin to the corner and just avoided it at the last moment. But like he had to move a lot, so it wasn't like he had to dodge out of the way. He had to dodge and run a little bit because of, the size of the wrestlers compared to him. So that one was fine. And then the other one was just, they want to tell the story with Angle and Dan Angle and just, bookmark the whole feud between the two of them.
Real legend in the chat, Javier, says, it's the first time I saw a ref actually dodge getting hit, LOL. Yes, all referees should study Charles Robinson. It took him 50 years of refereeing.
That's
Sorry,
rough.
Charles. Sorry, Charles. But, it is almost true. And he finally learned to dodge and didn't get bumped. Standard Deviation said, I thought the teasing of the ref bump twice beforehand was hokey. It was. Pile Driver Pete, call back to Wednesday night, says, this match was not a Bosch refrigerator. That is an awesome callback, Pile Driver Pete. If you don't know what he's talking about, shame on you for not listening to the Dynamite post show. We had a blast with my Bosch refrigerator analogy. It was framed as a compliment for a clean, sleek, basic, no frills episode of Dynamite, especially the MGF build. All right, I gave away some of the context for it. Let's see. There's another. This one. Standard Deviation says, Jeff Jarrett booking. Did they hire Jeff Jarrett to produce this match? Because that is speaking of AEW, that is the AEW special when Jeff Jarrett was in the ring for that stretch of time a year or so ago. Whenever that was. And going back to TNA, which is on my mind at the moment. Like that's how Jeff Jarrett booked all his matches. It's like, hey, no one's smart. No one's as clever as I am. No one's thought of doing all these things in one match. It was a bit of a smokescreen sometimes for. It was his way to compete, but it was also, not to get too Jeff Jarrett analysis here, but it's also his Memphis upbringing, his Tennessee wrestling style booking, but it also was a way to kind of hide some of the shortcomings relative to the younger, more athletic wrestlers. So this kind of had that, and you could argue maybe for similar reasons. Drew and Cody weren't super confident that they'd be able to not have a super compelling 20-minute match in a main event if they didn't have some bells and whistles going on. CJ, back to you. CJ, back to you. Oh, his computer, I think, froze up. All right.
I'm up for it. I think there's a couple ways this could go. If it stays a single match, if it turns into a multi-man match, who turns heel, Cody or Randy? They have history from the Evolution days. I'm up for it. And then what's your take on Nia Jax? Because nothing personal against her, but as a wrestler, she's a complete channel changer for me. What's your take on Nia?
I think Nia's been really good. I think she's getting the reaction that heels are supposed to get, and she's on board, trying to get booed, being smug. I think Lash adds a different vibrancy and youth and dynamic that is good for her, and I think it's those two teaming up works for me. Feels WrestleMania worthy for Charlotte and Alexa, if that's where they're going. What do you think, Javier?
Yeah, this is the most confident she's come across. She has a way of speaking that's just not like great, but she doesn't need to be great. She doesn't need to be entertaining. She just needs to get people to boo her. And she does it very well. But she's doing it now with more confidence, and she's handling herself in the ring with more confidence, which I think was I'm not a wrestler or any of that, but I could believe that a lot of like the injuries that she was involved in was probably likely because of the lack of confidence, and I think she's more more confident altogether, and I think it's made her she's worked a lot well, and her matches have gotten way better than what they used to be. And like I said, Lash Legend teaming up with her, the two of them selling a powerhouse, a massive powerhouse team. They feel dangerous. I've liked the job they've done. The only thing I didn't like was the way they won the title, because it was kind of like, okay, we gotta get the title off of Rhea Ripley because she's now in the main event, and even though the women's tag team title, we have built it up to mean something, now we're just going to hot potato it over to them without telling a strong story, just because it's time. So they're not beating it's just a trinket allegations from Tom Martin anytime soon. So
CJ, anything else you want to add?
I think I'm pretty good. What was I gonna say?
Something about Bayley. Come on.
Not tonight.
All right, fair enough.
But she better have a WrestleMania match, damn it.
I know. Yeah, hopefully she does.
I think she
TV time.
How is she then doing it too again, especially when they're making it part of the storyline? Do you?
Did you catch that, Javier?
No, I missed that.
Yeah, it was a little jumbled. Go ahead, CJ. His audio's freezing up on. Add it to the chat, CJ. And we'll try to address that. Let's see. Jean Albert says Nia Jax is also in the best shape she's been in since she came to WWE. Goodfella said Bailey against AJ Lee works for me. Goodfella says Nia is a good worker this last 15 months, maybe more. She's been good. I saw it before anyone else did. I was giving her more credit than most when I think there was a presupposition to assume she was worse than she was. But those who did not agree with me will argue she wasn't good, and I was just saying it, and then she did become good, and now they're right, but they were right when they said she wasn't. But whatever, she's in a good spot. I think they got a lot out of her. There was a lot of resistance to her coming in by fans, even a little bit internally. But yeah, it's working out well. She's making the person who decided to bring her back and vouch for her feel good about that decision. I think for sure. Okay. Oh yeah, Javier.
I remembered what I was going to say earlier because I talked about the wrestlers that are leaving. We were talking about like that's a transitional period for WWE. Didn't mention all the ones that are coming in, like Obafemi. You're finally doing some of Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes is looking good. Dragunov is looking good. You got Gunther, who's going to be one of your main guys going forward. So you have all the you have Austin Theory is about to break out any day now. So you got all this stuff going on. You got Bronson Reed's been a breath of fresh air. You got Braun Breaker. Things are I'm more excited for the future and how things pop off. Coming in the next couple of years. So and unfortunately right now it's like you're in a down period. So
all right, you brought him up. Not me, but you've been on the Austin Theory bandwagon going back quite a way. I think the bandwagon seems like this guy should get a shot to be serious and see if he can make it. Not I'm promising and guaranteeing and putting my money up that he will. So now that he's getting the chance you thought made sense, advocated for, how's he doing?
Considering I did not watch Raw, so I can't tell.
You missed his best week yet. I mean, it's small sample.
Yeah,
size,
I mean the little bit he's done, I've liked, and I'm not expecting. I'm expecting this to be baby steps. This is the part of the reclamation project. You want him to do strong stuff. Somebody mentioned, I don't know who mentioned. I might have been reading an article or something, and they mentioned that Austin Theory needs to show more of his personality by doing comedy, like he was doing, and I'm like, no, no. I mean, he has the potential to be more. He has the potential to be because he's great at comedy. He was great. He was hilarious in NXT. The whole Gargano family stuff was great, but it was it definitely puts a ceiling on him. And I have liked the serious Theory. You just got to give it time. I mean, it hurts that he has lost the people that around him with Bronson Reed.
Braun
Breaker and Bronson Reed. I didn't remember Bronson Reed got injured. Yeah, so just down to him and Logan Paul. But the fact that Logan Paul has now entered the sphere of like he feels like a real wrestler, he's really there, not just the celebrity guy. And they're not like they're not shoving you down our throats now. He's just part of the group, but he still stands out. And then standing next to Theory, and I like the fact that it seems like the bits I've seen, it seems like he's also like he knows that Theory has more experience in the business, so he kind of seems to be more acquiescent in some scenarios. He's not stealing the spotlight from Theory, which I also like. So
and Heyman has a good relationship with Austin Theory, with Logan Paul, I should say. Logan, is guided by Paul Heyman behind the scenes on how to not self-sabotage, because he is, as you said, like he wasn't seen as an actual wrestler. He's seen kind of like Miz was when he first came in, and JBL, did unthinkable torture of psychological and whatever of him, hazing, because he was a reality show guy who came in. Obviously, Logan way beyond Miz in terms of recognizability and accomplishments and fame and money and all that. But it's still something you carry around with you. So Paul Heyman is not with Austin Theory out of protest. Paul Heyman believes in Austin Theory as someone worth giving a try to. So what you're saying is also a result not of just Logan going, well, I'm deferring to Austin Theory, who has more experience. I think it's also Austin Theory taking direction from Paul Heyman, who shows some respect and deference to Austin. We don't want him to seem like a lackey because we're trying to very much cast him against people's impressions, the negative inertia that Theory had. They're trying to strip away. They're trying to strip everything away from him. They didn't want him to be noticed for the first few weeks. Like, they just want people to get used to him not being dopey. And now because we don't want people to think now suddenly he's something completely different. We don't want him thinking about him at all. And we get about a month of that, and then it's just step by step by step. And now he is believable to me as a intense guy who has a chip on his shoulder. So they're rebuilding him a little bit. Anyway, I don't want to do anything more on Austin Theory other than 3 quick comments from the chat, and we'll get to actual SmackDown content here. Let's see. There it is. Powder Pete says, Austin is trying. Is it working? Don't know, but he's trying. Standard Deviation said they're giving Theory weekly promos during the ad break, and that's good. You know, it's one thing to practice in front of a mirror. It's another thing to practice in front of a international audience. The happy middle ground is it's only for people with commercial-free version of Netflix. We're seeing it, but it's a rep, but it's a rep that counts. You know, he without a net, so to speak. And I thought there was one other comment on him. Anyway, that's good enough. Let's talk about Jade Cargill and Rhea Ripley. Face to face, they had quite a week on social media, quite a bit of buzz, a lot of conflicting reports out there. It was a shoot from the beginning. It was a work that turned into a shoot. Feelings were legitimately hurt. It was a shoot all the way, or was a work all the way. Lots of conflicting reports on that. I mean, I've given what I've heard in the Wade Keller News Bulletin for VIP members a few days ago. I don't have a lot to add to that. But tonight was interesting because that was the Bosch refrigerator of shoot social media driven feuds, in that they didn't lean on it. There was no homework. There was no, what are they talking about? There was a tweet. There was an Instagram post. They just went out there and talked about their canon, that what's their characters are in canon. So for people who know about that, they went at it at social media, whether it was launched by the writing team with encouragement, and Jade was in on it, but Rhea wasn't, or they both were in on it, but then some things were said that weren't vetted, or whatever, you know, and there's all kinds of ways to look at it and theories internally. They didn't lean on that in this segment. They had people who knew about it, who were anticipating it, but they did what Reigns and Punk haven't shown themselves capable of doing yet, or confident enough to do, or chose to do, which is, let's just stay in canon. We're not going to talk about anything that isn't storyline driven as if this is real. And I admire them. I thought they pulled it off. What do you think, Javier?
Yeah, there was a very, very slight mention in terms of I forgot the exact line where, but I think it was like the attack on, you know, you are about the looks while I'm about the fighting. That's about as close they got to their back and forth.
But to me, that's an NBA player going, you're all about slam dunks, and I'm about playing defense and hard every night. Like, yeah. I'm okay with that, totally.
But I'm saying it worked perfectly in terms, because it works on that level. Yep. You know, you care more about your looks and holding, and how good you look holding the title, while I care more about defending it, you know. But that's you're superficial and I'm a badass. That's a babyface line. Exactly, which was a bit of what their back and forth was. So they're playing into that without actually it being, you know, referencing it. You know what I mean? Yep. So, you know, so that whole thing, like, you know, a little kernel of truth and what's going on. Mm-hmm. And it makes sense for the two characters. You know, one of them, you know, she how Jade dresses, and, you know, and her whole persona about, you know, that's like, you know, look at me, while Rhea Ripley is more like, you know, doesn't care, and she you know, doesn't care what people think about her, and she just want to beat people up. I mean, it worked. The storylines are tough. I thought, I mean, I was like chopping at the bit, because I'm like, is this going to be like a Charlotte Flair situation where she doesn't like you? Is this going to go off the rails? What are we looking at? But no, we got two professionals straight up going at each other, and I thought it was, you know, like you said, it was the Potch refrigerator. I got to go back and listen to that now to get the reference, to get the full reference, but I get the idea. But yeah, I mean, I thought this is a good start for whatever they're going to be doing.
I don't want to be guilty of what I criticize. I'll just summarize it. There's a lot of refrigerators like LG and Samsung, and it's all about, hey, there's this door just for beverages, and then there's an iPad on the front, and then there's a ice dispenser, and you can fill your water in the door and all that. And then Bosch, it's just this handsome, simple machine, and there it is. There's no ice maker, there's no iPad. It's symmetrical. It just works, and it internally. I own a Bosch, so I rave about it. I'm happy to go back to raving about it here. It's just every vegetable in the fridge stays fresher, like twice as long. I mean, like, it's just because it has the freezer has a compressor, whatever it's called, a thing that makes cold air, whatever the term for that is, and the refrigerator has one. Most fridges, they just have one, and the freezer keeps the fridge cold, and there's a much wider range in temperature. Bosch says we're going to strip away the ice maker and the iPad and the special gimmicky door that within a door. We're just going to make a fridge that keeps food fresh and it looks sleek and nice. And that was my argument for Dynamite and even the MJF promo at the top of the show. It wasn't about a bunch of stuff, and it was inspired by, what Punk and Reigns are doing, which some people like, some people don't. And I get it, but it was relying too much on stuff outside of canon. And we're not confident in our ability to sell a promo. The way Rhea and Jade did, they were confident that their characters is a solid babyface and a solid heel. Rhea has ground to stand on, and she can make her case, and you would want to cheer her after she makes her case. And Jade is arrogant and full of herself and more superficial, and you want to see Jade make come true what she said about Jade. It just was straightforward, and that's why on the Dynamite post show, I said, and we had a short up on our YouTube channel too on it. It's believing in pro wrestling. And I have, since Monday Night War era, when things got out of hand and certain writers who got chance after chance decided, belts are just, props and we're going to do title changes all the time, and you blow away all the equity that was built up in discipline of prior generations of bookers, and long championship reigns and all that. It just blew everything up. And then it became, but there's the internet, so we have to cater to the internet. We have to cater to now social media. It's like, no, you don't. Believe in pro wrestling. Believe in that you can tell a compelling story, pull people in, even though people know more inside stuff than ever. Thanks to WWE, going back to books, going back to insider radio shows in the 90s and the newsletters. Even before that, people knew. It's just they didn't have as much open access to it. Believe in pro wrestling. It is a genre with a structure, and if you play within the lines, it's really good. NBA doesn't need trampolines on the basketball court. They don't need to turn the lights off and on in the middle of a game. They don't need to have players run in on the court. They believe in basketball, and they tell their story. Pro wrestling simulated sport. Believe in it. And Rhea Jade, I enter into evidence. It worked. And I was super worried. Not that things strayed super far off storyline on social media, but nevertheless, they didn't just make it seem like that's all they had in mind, is we're just going to use social media to try to make it feel more real than everything else. And I think that's the big, just tying a ribbon around this. What I really liked about this, Javier, is they weren't trying to say our feud, our title, and our fight is more real than anyone else's because of something behind the scenes. That's nonsense. It builds you up by tearing everyone else down. Don't make everything else seem less real or therefore more fake than you. It's disrespectful, and I think it breaks the continuity for viewers. This was all in canon. It all fit storyline. Javier.
Yeah, you nailed it. Like I said, it was just straight up. I get where the two of them are coming from. I find it interesting that this doesn't really necessarily paint Jade as a heel either, because she showed respect to Rhea Ripley. Saying, I respect you for this, I respect you for that, but I'm not afraid of you. This is basically what he said. And what this sets up, for me at least, at the point we're at, is can Jade... Rhea Ripley is accusing Jade of being superficial. Now it's up to Jade to prove that she's more than just superficial, which works on two levels. I know it's not intended to work necessarily on two levels. It's just a straight up storyline, but it also works on the level of, that's kind of what the fans' opinion of Jade is, that she looks great, but she hasn't done anything.
Yep.
So you're also playing into that without it interfering with the actual story that you're telling.
What Jade could have said, and still can, we got plenty of time, is
Yeah, you say I'm built for show? I have a title. You don't. I'll beat you in the ring. I'll show you that these muscles aren't just for show. They're going to overpower you. That you're going to realize, I mean, you don't want her to make too good of a point because she's a heel. But Jade does have a comeback she can make, which is you can call these superficial muscles. I say it makes me stronger than you, and that's going to come into play in the match. Keep it sports related. Standard Deviation said it was appropriately uneventful. People on social media are down on this segment, but their reaction is akin to a child receiving broccoli instead of frozen pizza. I am glad social media is down on it in the sense that they don't know what's best for themselves, and they certainly don't know what's best for the people who aren't on social media analyzing this right after the event, which is a vast majority of people. And I also don't know that every pocket that we notice is representative of everybody in a larger sense. But the more that pro wrestling bookers decide it's time to not book to social media, the ephemeral likes and buzz and trending this and it got seen on Instagram this many times and it broke a record. You're chasing something that isn't actually going to draw money. You want awareness on social media. You want people talking about your product, but you do it within the lines of the playing field of pro wrestling. Don't go outside of it. And so if social media is bummed out, that means WWE did their job, which is they pulled back on something that started to look unprofessional. And in the Wade Keller News Bulletin, VIP exclusive. Hope everyone's listening to the audio version or reading it. It's on the VIP site. Check it out every day if you're a VIP member. My concluding line, spoiler alert, was this is something that management needs to probably step in, no matter what the context of it all was, and make sure that there isn't lasting damage to how fans perceive their professionalism. I don't think generating ephemeral social media buzz going into the first promo is worth it if now people look at Jade and Rhea both or one or the other as unprofessional, where they think less of them because they showed a thin skin or a sensitivity or a vulnerability that is unbecoming of their image. This segment played into their images on TV. We didn't see too much of them. We didn't gain too much access to them on a personal level. I know we get that on WWE Unreal and on social media. Rhea's been vulnerable in ways that I don't think suits her character great. I don't think it ruins it, but you don't want it on the proper TV show. And you also don't want to make it look like WWE can't quote control their talent, that they don't have leadership that can guide people to not get out of hand. And whether the narrative did become work or shoot, if it starts to work and turn into a shoot and feelings were hurt, management needs to create some leadership and they need to vet and they need to direct things. So this segment, I think, stabilizes something that had more negatives and positives potentially if the sample that Standard Deviation is referencing got their way. The goal of WWE is not to create fodder for social media for 24 hours. WWE's job is to protect their characters, protect their product, and not have one segment seem more real than all the others, because I think that does more damage than good in the macro sense. So I think they did their job, and I applaud them for it. And again, stop catering to social media bookers in wrestling. Understand and believe in pro wrestling and playing within the lines, because people really want to see a fight and they really want someone to cheer who they genuinely like, and they really want to see boo someone who they genuinely want to see lose and get shown up. That's what this segment was about. This is pro wrestling. This is how you sell tickets.
Yeah, and just hopefully they stay with it, because this could also have just been done this way to lower the temperature too.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it, making them shake hands on TV is likely just, hey, shake hands, and you're going to shake out in the middle of the. I could totally see in wrestling that them actually making shake hands outside. So, but yeah, I do hope that they stick with it. And and honestly, like I did follow some of the back and forth. I had a bigger issue with all the other wrestlers that then started jumping in and piling on in the whole thing. I think that was the more unprofessional part of it. Because the thing between Rhea and Jade felt like it was just started off as a playful quote unquote back and forth, which then got where then it got someone went too far. But then it was the other people after that person went too far piling on. That I think was the most unprofessional part, the ones that added in afterwards.
Jade brings some of this on. I will say, just from the sampling of people whose opinions I trust in WWE this past week, I don't think Jade is like all bad and a villain. I think that's been the case at times with backstage or things that leak on camera, where it's just like you can take sides. Don't just be like, well, there's always another side of the story that's equally valid. Jade brings some of this on herself, but some of it is put upon her because she did move to the top quickly. She does have a look. She didn't pay dues in the traditional way, and she doesn't handle, and she hasn't handled some of the reaction to that internally particularly well. But some of it, as you're saying, Javier, can feel like just ganging up on somebody out of jealousy or not understanding that sometimes, frankly, superficial traits does give you a head start. I mean, it gives you a heads up. It just does. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just that's show business. Yeah. Some chat comments here. Powder for Pizza. Jade was handed an opportunity. Few of us would reject. Mark Pescetti says Jade feels like the Ultimate Warrior. She's got an aura and the look, but can't back it up. Her look got her here, but the match feels like a foregone conclusion. Jade's just not ready. And I think the idea is Jade putting in the work and the time to get better? Has she rejected or accepted people willing to help her and guide the kind of minefield that is getting a big push ahead of the dues that you paid in terms of locker room perception? And that's where there's some, room for criticism. But I'm not hearing universally, oh, she's just got a big head and she's an awful person, and that's why everyone's ganging up on her. I mean, I think there's a mix of there's a mix of opinions, and I think there's good counters to many of them at this point. All right, Goodfellas says, I have faith in Jade. She is a natural. She doesn't seem it, but her match against Jordan Grace was really good. Something is there for sure. Derek Mitchell says, she might feel like Ultimate Warrior Lex Luger as long as she's entertaining, quite frankly. I don't care if she isn't a great wrestler. I mean, that's the thing. It's, WWE does not have a you don't have to be able to carry someone to a 3.5-star match to get a push or draw money in this business. I mean, Jason Paul and Johnny Fairplay on this week's Pro Wrestling Boom podcast, I recommend everyone check that out. Jason joins me on the flagship every 3 weeks, but he does a weekly show called Pro Wrestling Boom. Subscribe to that. Search Pro Wrestling Boom. Johnny Fairplay of Survivor fame on. They talk some Survivor 50, by the way. I don't think they did spoilers. It was really, really fun show, but they were talking about Hogan Andre and like how that was a good match. It's awful in so many ways that, there was a certain match tonight that was awful in certain ways, but it was still a great match, for reasons that count more to drawing crowds and getting crowd reactions than a lot of the athleticism and dives and all that we get. So Jade needs to hit a certain threshold, Javier, to avoid to get to that part, but she doesn't have to be someone who can carry a rookie or someone to 3.5 stars for her to be worth pushing. It's sometimes your job is to be carried because you have other special traits, and she has them.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling. That's funny because one of my favorite matches is Kota Ibushi versus Taichi. I think it was a G1 Climax. And the match was basically 15 minutes of each other, of them standing across from each other, kicking each other in the chin for about 10 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. Just straight up, like 10 minutes of kicking. And it was super entertaining by the way they sold and stuff like that. It's You don't need to do, do like 100 flips or whatever just to get, for it to be an impactful match that moves you. There were like in the main event, there were moments where the tie into the Dan Angler thing, if you're paying attention to the overall storyline, is like, oh, when he came out, because when Dan Angler came out as the backup referee, I'm like, oh, there's going to be an issue here because this is the referee that Drew was forced to apologize to because he had attacked. So there's going to be some sort of issue, and at that point, like my analytical brain was like, oh, that's why they took out Robinson. Is to get this, to get this story beat in. And then, sure enough, that was working the story. That's not part of the wrestling, it's part of the match. It's part of the story that they're trying to tell you. Some people want to see just the acrobatics part of it. That's fine. Some people go to, but if there's more to it than just that. I mean, so
if they sell out a stadium doing acrobatic wrestling, I will change my perspective on that, but otherwise I'm on Team Luthez.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what AEW goes for, to try to get you the most. I mean, I'm not just saying acrobatic.
I would say there's Tony Khan leans that way more than he ought to over the years, but there is, I think they want
gotten better recently.
Yeah, I think they want. I mean, heck, 5 years ago they were telling WWE style, whatever stories. It's just, I think there's a fan base and a contingent that hang their head on that being the differentiating factor enough in AEW for them not to have to do the other stuff competently. Strong heels, strong faces, titles that mean something, an internal logic in the way that they execute things, and done so in a compelling fashion with promos that don't talk above the mainstream fan's head. And that's where they've come up short. I'm not against having super athletic wrestlers doing state-of-the-art athleticism in matches, but I don't want that to be a crutch or a substitute for all the other things that actually ultimately draw money. It's the athleticism is great, and it appeals to a slice of the audience that has every right to demand it and thoroughly enjoy it. I'm not against it. I just don't want that to blind people to the fact, if that's what they're into, that it's not enough to be a strong number two. Okay. You mentioned Charlotte earlier, Javier. Pick up on that.
Yeah, she just feels like she's having fun. She was just like smiling during that match. I think since she's not being in the position of the Ice Queen that they've done all this time, I'm wondering, had they not pushed her in that direction from the get-go, if she would have been in a better position today. Because it just seems that she's a lot freer out there and not like struggling against herself in the ring too. It's translated into the ring, not just when she's out there doing promos. So I think overall it's been it's a good what if her coming up in the WWE would have been different.
Charlotte does seem happier, more comfortable being herself, more comfortable. When I say being herself, like that sounds sort of trite, cliche. People say, "Oh, be yourself," but like genuinely, like she doesn't seem like there's this veneer of being a pro wrestling character. She's just Ashley. Like there's a movement in the ring that feels less robotic, less practiced, and like just rehearsed. And her just having more fun in the ring. It's amazing how the storyline with Alexa, it seems like the story they're telling led to, in a shoot sense, the reality matching it. Alexa was trying to get Charlotte to lighten up, loosen up, be herself. That was the gimmick, that was the story, and now it's actually happened, like for real, which is fun to see. Goodfellas says Alexa and Charlotte feel like they need each other. They're behind on in-ring talent. Soul, Jada, Kiana seem above them. Derek says, I think she has as well. It just feels like there's a segment of people who dislike her for their own reason. She might never be a great wrestler, but as long as she's entertaining. Okay, I think that was about Jade. Sorry, I might have gone back too far. JC Scooby says, Charlotte needs to stay out of WWE's title scene for a while. Eric Moy says, there's less talk about Charlotte having to follow in her father's footsteps. Those expectations were always too high of a burden. I like that. It just seems like they're going to keep Charlotte and Bliss together. I'm okay with them carrying this all the way to WrestleMania. I don't know. Sometimes, there's too many turns. Every time someone gets a little bit stale or something kind of plays out, I think, C- bookers just decide, oh, now it's time to turn someone to heat things up. It's kind of similar to my philosophy on bringing up shoot comments and social media stuff, or real life behind the scenes things as a way to try to heat up a feud. It's a crutch, and it makes everything else seem a little more fake, relatively speaking. Again, that's why I wasn't as big on the pipe bomb promo from Punk as others, but I especially don't like it when it's just done as a crutch for not just having your fundamentals down. If Charlotte and Alexa's like, oh, it's been fun, but everyone wants us to turn someone, who should we turn? It's time to turn them. Like, no, just don't turn them. Like, have them go to separate brands or just split up and wrestle singles or stay a team, gasp for 3 years. Like, that happens. Like, it's okay. Like, Charlotte can break off and have a singles match here and there, but they can just be together, be friends, whether they're teaming or not. The more turns you have, the more it waters down the impact of turns. And Charlotte's turned often enough. I don't know if people would even believe it at this point. So I like it. Let's see. There's a Goodfellas says there's a spot for Charlotte for sure, but read the room. I actually don't know the context of that, Goodfella. Derek says, I think it is actually, it made Charlotte who she is today with the death of her brother Reed, the multiple divorce, and she finally feels embraced by the fans and finally feels like her genuine self. Yeah,
I mean, it's a feel good story watching her not feel like she's putting like that she's a putting on a veneer that isn't who her authentic self is out of insecurity or feeling that she isn't enough. There's no imposter syndrome with this current character, Charlotte. I think there might have been in the past. She might have even said that at some point that she had imposter syndrome. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, it's just, you know, she and you know, part of it's just getting older, you know, just she's kind of grown up before our very eyes too.
Yeah, I think Becky was the one who specifically said that she has imposter syndrome, but it would also fit Charlotte, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yep. I think Charlotte's thing was just the, you know, she got into it, you know, she was carrying basically her brother, you know, the load of her brother, mm-hmm. and, you know, the legacy of her father, and, you know, the WWE just, you know, made her, you know, she was supposed to be the number one woman and have the same number of title reigns as her father did and stuff like that. So I think that ultimately that was a lot of, you know, she had to be perfect, you know, and I think that now she's in a position where she's like, hey, look, I'm gonna enjoy wrestling. If I'm gonna continue wrestling, I'm just gonna enjoy it, do it the way I want to. So I think similarly, some of the stuff that Becky's doing, you know, where and I think it's worked. I mean, there's a moment in that match where I think she came off the ropes or was coming back into the ring or something, and her hair was messed up and it looked like her makeup was messed up and all, and she was just like smiling, and I'm like, wow, that's like, you know, it's like, you know, you see the person as opposed to the robot, you know, because we always talked about her being a robot. She looks like a real person now. So yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, she might still be clunky in spots in the ring, but hey, you know, it feels good to watch the matches now.
And again, you have to have a certain level of being able to be good in the ring, to be worth pushing at a top level. I mean, there's no shame in wanting to see critiquing a wrestler for maybe being too clunky or green or missing spots and all that. I mean, but I think Charlotte hits that threshold. I mean, I do. I don't think that she's so below great. I just think people wanted her to be more than she was, in that weighed on her, you know, because of who her dad was and how good he was. And frankly, her gimmick her gimmick is she's that good. Mark Biscotti says, I personally need good wrestling to feel good about a match and a show, you know? And I mean, but do you need it to be great? Do you need it to be packed with high spots? Does it need to be chasing stars, or can it be good because the crowd is super into every move that happens? And there's a certain threshold of movement and athleticism. And I don't blame people who go, you know what, Roman Reigns get crowd response. He's got star power. It feels important, but it doesn't do it for me because it's too few moves and it's too deliberate. And it just, I need more than that. I totally get that. I'm kind of sympathetic to that. But you don't just want a bunch of moves without a backstory, without it feeling important, without the crowd reacting in a certain way, without moves having a chance to breathe, without there being some sort of internal logic to the match. I mean, so, you know, yeah, but I get somebody just going, there's a certain level of athleticism I need, because I don't just want to see, you know, people wandering around the ring telling stories and yelling at the crowd. And, you know, we got to have some modern, you know, threshold to be hit if you're going to be on national TV, because there's so many who have that trait. Don't push someone at top who doesn't. And I get that too. Standard Deviation says Charlotte's gimmick as a dominant queen was wildly different to those who she seems to be in real life. The less they have to act different to what comes naturally, the better. And then Sanju F says, or Fly-In says, good characters sell tickets, not good wrestling. Yes, but good characters won't sell tickets for long if people are bored watching the wrestling. I mean, you really want to have both. I just am arguing, don't hold it against somebody for just being good and not super dazzling if they're checking the other boxes. Yeah, Javier.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about like just a 30-minute rest hold, although occasionally it works. You know, I mean, occasionally it something like that works if it works in the story. Yeah. You know, you want to get at least 5, you know, what I would say like 2.5 to 3 stars. You know, that's what you want. That's kind of like your baseline. You might dip a little bit, you know, on occasion. And remember, you're also booking a show. So, you know, you are going to have your athletic characters. It was a Todd called Javon Evans that he's in the show me phase of his career, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, you know, so you want, you know, so at that point you do want to show, you know, athleticism, what you can do. But just like, Osprey eventually, age starts catching up to you, and injuries and getting beat up, you want to actually pull back on that. You're still going to be giving good matches. You're just not going to be like, jumping off a building every day.
You mentioned 2.5 to 3 stars, and I kind of wanted to jump in and like, the star rating system, I think it doesn't, there's a place for it in a very narrow sense, but what is a 3-star match? Is it really good athleticism with no crowd involvement, no sense of it fitting within the context of the company and what it's doing? But hey, there were a bunch of high spots and people said this is awesome and fight forever and whatever. Like, is that there are people who will rate matches higher because of the density of high spots and state-of-the-art athleticism, but they will take no points away for a lack of long-term selling, a lack of crowd investment in what's happening, or an inefficiency in taking chances and maybe shortening your career with other moves that would be just as effective but not as dangerous, and fewer of them. And I like to weigh all that into my star rating. I don't think you get 4.5 stars and then you give someone who just did fewer high spots in the same time frame fewer stars because they didn't do anything that surprised you or is a move that wasn't around 15 years ago. And you need to have that. Like, part of what constitutes an effective good match are some of the things you talked about in Japan that are not like traditional entertaining battles, but it fit the moment for you. And a booker and wrestlers with wisdom and a broad understanding of the history of the business and what draws and the context that they're in now and how it fits into the journey fans have been on watching wrestling, that all factors in. And that's what made AJ Styles great, as he got older. He knew it was what he did in between moves. He knew it was body language. He knew it's the posture he had before he hit a move and after he hit a move. It wasn't just hitting the move. I'm not saying he never played to the crowd and let the heel recover and then lost his advantage. But, there are some wrestlers who are just egregiously bad at that. They're not cognizant of that being a thing that you should, try to look like you're trying to win a fight instead of get a crowd reaction. So many things play into what a star rating should be, but in so many places isn't that's why, one of the many reasons I stopped doing star ratings. But that doesn't change the fact that Cody and Randy were known as 3.25 star specialists for years because they were.
Yeah, because the only time I really heavily did the star rating thing was during the G1 Climax and the Best of Super Juniors and like their tournaments. Yep. Because I'm grading it within the actual framework of what the tournament is, and ultimately I graded it based on how entertained I was in the match, not necessarily what they did. Granted, during the era I was watching, it was high. It was a lot of work rate. It was high level work rate stuff. I love counter wrestling, so that's so counter wrestling. So ultimately, I gave him a match based on how entertained I was by the end of it. So like endings would be higher. Would rate higher because did they tell a good ending? Did the match fit? Did the stuff they did early in the match fit the end of the match? All that stuff. So it's like a whole comprehensive thing, not just And then sometimes you'll have the story that you told is strong enough to carry the match, to make it entertaining and be a match you remember. Because ultimately, what are the matches you remember? So, you might have, you might remember the match because there was a big title change and it's like the culmination. I don't remember the match between Reigns and Cody when he finishes the story. Like, I remember some of the stuff, but I don't like remember that match, right? But I remember it because of what it meant. It was Cody, finally coming full circle, so that match is going to be higher rated because of what it meant overall for Cody, what it meant for Reigns, what it meant for the company, what it meant. So all that mattered more than what were the moves they hit in the match. And
we could do a whole hour and a half on star ratings and the history of it and stuff, but I'll throw this in here too. Star ratings were created in the 80s when there were only squash matches on TV. There was a lot of lazy wrestlers who were, in monopolistic territorial systems, who were craftsmen at getting crowd reactions, but fans wanted to know with camcorders and VHS tapes, I want to watch good matches. I want to get that Flair Steamboat bootleg house show match where there was a security camera or whatever pointed at the ring, or somebody brought a camcorder, and then Japan, I only have so much time and I only have so much money, to pay, $20-$30 per tape from someone to dub it in Japan. But I want to know what the good matches are that I should see. And there are matches that are more exciting and are going to be on the match of the year ledger because of what they were doing in Japan in the mid to late 80s and that kind of Dynamite Kid, Tiger Kid era. And you want to have Tiger Mask, and you want to have a shortcut so you can just pick out what you're going to buy and get sent to you. You want to acknowledge the people who were really working hard on house shows versus the ones who weren't. Then we got in the pay-per-view era, and it's 3-4 pay-per-views a year, or, and there's only so many matches. And so you had, and it was expensive to get a pay-per-view, and they weren't all the time, and you weren't in that Monday Night War 2-hour, 3-hour show era where they're just spamming main event matches like Eric Bischoff did to take Raw down, as Vince McMahon felt was very unfair. And complained to me about it multiple times. Vince McMahon did that they have subsidies, they can get by on other things. We need to save matches for house shows and pay-per-view, and they're ruining it for us. A lot changed. And so then matches had a different purpose, and it was about holding an audience opposite of another show, or pleasing a hardcore internet crowd who are going to praise us and we're going to win, awards. I mean, there's so many things that led to wrestlers taking their eye off what constituted a match that draws. And that's different in different contexts than a match that gets a high star rating. I don't know. I could break down a lot of those points and add more and spend more than an hour talking about it. Star ratings, the purpose they once served has changed as the international style and the accessibility of matches, the frequency of main event wrestlers facing each other has gone way up. It's just different. So I don't know how relevant that they still are, or if they're relevant in a completely different way that's more narrow than it used to be. Derek Mitchell in the chat said, is there another ranking system besides stars? And I mean, that's the thing. I always said star ratings when I was using them and defended them. It was a shortcut for, this is a good match, it's a very good match, it's an excellent match, it's a match of the year. I mean, I described 2 3/4 to 3 1/4, 3.5 to 4, 4 to 4.5, or 4 3/4 and 5. I mean, it was just a shortcut for that. But I don't know. It's just the world has changed. The wrestling world has changed as far as that goes. Powder Repeat says, I and a lot of people love Rock against Hogan, not scientific wrestling whatsoever. Also, Mark Biscotti says a hot crowd can make a 3-star match feel like 4. Yeah. I mean, should it? Shouldn't a match just be 3 stars if it's 3, or 4 if it's 4? Should a crowd really add a star? That's how subjective they are. You can have a really good match in front of a crowd that just happens to be tired or stressed out, or it came later on a show when other people burned out the crowd, and so they don't get the reaction they deserve. The same match in a different city on a different night in a different context can have the crowd involved. It's the exact same moves and everything, and it deserves different stars. Or does it? That's a debate for the ages. Gary Francis said there was so much lore between Okada, Omega, Tanahashi, Shinsuke, Naito, Ibushi. They felt like legends with lore, not just guys doing moves. And that's the thing. Like, the lore adds relevance and it makes it more compelling. But, where does that register on the star rating system? There isn't an objective definition of it. Standard Deviation says the only reason I'll ever think about stars is if I'm going through historical matches in search of something to watch that stood out in time. There you go. I agree with that. One more here. Derek Mitchell says, in my opinion, star ratings have tainted fan perspective of what is good or not. It makes my skin crawl when someone uses 4 or 5 stars as a barometer for a good match. Hogan Andre might be 2 stars, but I loved it. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, can you accept that a high star rating might not be good for business or might have been inappropriate for its place on the card, but in isolation, it's something that you should seek out? Yeah, I mean, but that's a lot of qualifiers on it. And to answer Derek's question, there isn't another popular system in place. I mean, you can give letter grades to matches. People have done systems where they have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 criteria, like, okay, athleticism, pace, booking, finish, gravity, I mean, you could do that, but you'd kind of have to pick your spots to do it. It gets more complicated. Mark Biscotti says the term work rate defined star ratings in the 90s. Today's star ratings don't seem to have a consistent foundation for how matches are rated. True. Okay. Johnny Gargano. Javier, we're going to rapid fire before we wrap up here. What'd you think of him kind of waking up? He's going to be Johnny Wrestling again after a guilt trip / pep talk from Candice LeRae, and then he gets the former NXT champ gets destroyed by Oba Femi.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I love Johnny Gargano. I like his he's kind of like a guilty pleasure of mine. And I'm curious as where he's going to go. I'm assuming he's going to be depressed again because he got destroyed by Obafemi now.
Yeah.
But it was kind of obvious from the moment he said, I'm going to go out there and challenge someone. I'm like, oh, it's going to be Obafemi. And yeah, I mean, he was used for that. I did get a kick out of Motor City Machine Guns. They're rolling that with Shelley, trying to, hey, you got to get over him betraying us. And he goes, well, why didn't you help me? He goes, I did. I'll show you on the replay. So at least.
Thank you. Someone actually said, watch the replay.
Yeah.
The wrestler actually said that for evidence.
So overall, that was my favorite part of the whole segment. But yeah, it happened. I'm curious what the end game is. But yeah.
Johnny Gargano's 11 years younger than AJ Styles. He is younger than AJ Styles was when AJ arrived in WWE and built a WWE Hall of Fame legacy. Or you could say it wasn't without what he did in TNA before that in New Japan. But he's still got tread on those tires. He is smaller, and does, but I mean, that NXT TakeOver era was special. And I think some people are going to be like, you could get more out of him than this. So I'm curious what the next chapter is. If they're going to just dumb him down to comedy and never rebuild him, or they go, no, the guy's 38. He's got tread on the tires. This is part of a story, but this is going to be part of a lesson that gets him back to being Johnny Wrestling, and we are on a journey to that.
Yeah, I mean, he's great personality when he is Johnny Wrestling. So
yeah,
I'm hoping you do get to that position, but I've been hoping that I've been hoping that a lot of wrestlers that haven't been used that way have get moments, but they haven't yet. So.
Gary Francis, speaking of NXT, says, I think what Wade is saying is why the golden modern era of NXT. They had high-quality athleticism, storytelling, and characters, and they sold many tickets for their territory at the time. Yes. You can have great wrestling, but you need to, all the other stuff I talked about needs to be there if you want it to actually amount to something more than a small core audience reacting to it. All right. Real Legend goes, so Gargano has a chance. LOL. Goodfellas says, Motor City Machine Gun entrance is fire. You don't have 10 to 12 minutes for them. Twice a month is AL. Let's see.
They're one of my favorite music. They started playing. I'm like, oh wow, they're back! Yay! Which reminds me, I gotta call off the search for the Los Garzas.
Yes, that's right. Yep. What'd you think of the Gauntlet Tag Team match? What stood up?
I mean, it was fun enough. Kind of surprised that they had Axiom out there in the beginning, and that's interesting. How that's going to play off. Or is it an Axiom heel turn, or is this just going to be they're just going to be like, oh well, that happened. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised Los Garzas got as much as they did too. So that's a plus. And my eyes rolled when the Wyatt Six came out. I was kind of expecting there to be another team after, because I don't know why they just don't team up. What's the big guy's name?
Obafemi.
No, not him. From White Six. Rowan. I don't know why because I was expecting at some point that it would be Rowan and Uncle Howdy as a tag team, as the stronger tag team, which would make sense. And I'm like, I was kind of expecting that they would leave Killings and Priest come in. R-Truth, I don't know why I can remember his name. Expect them to come in, and then the other Wyatt Six come in, and then be the
that makes sense.
That would have been what made sense, but that didn't happen. I guess they wanted to give Priest a position in the end.
If in the same match you could end up with them fighting each other, so I think they just choose to not both enter the same match. I think they wanted Angel and Berto at the end because they didn't want Truth and Priest to beat Dexter and Gacy. Because I don't know if they're saving it or what, but I don't know. R-Truth and Damian Priest seems kind of fun. Are you okay with them staying a team for a little while? I mean, I think you can freshen up somebody who has some equity in a tag team.
Plus, on the commentary, they reminded me that R-Truth is part of Judgment Day briefly. So they're really
that's right. Yep. He also was against Rock and John Cena at Survivor Series once.
I am hoping that we at some point during this, if this is going to be like more than just a week, we do get moments where R-Truth becomes serious as he's done a few times. So because that'd be kind of neat. So
yeah, who did
Jason Paul bring up that I'm trying to remember the context on Pro Wrestling Boom that I was listening to today about a wrestler who could be playful but then get serious. It'll come to me. But yeah, those are fun characters. I know Flyboy Rock is my go-to example. Somebody could in ECW in kind of the early years where he would be playful, but then all of a sudden get very sinister in a believable way. Actually, he was talking about Javon Evans, and then in relation to Justin Jefferson on the Vikings, one of the top wide receivers in the league last few years, and that he's very positive and gregarious and affable and all those good traits, but he can also put on a game face, and that Javon can learn that. Like he can be outgoing and bouncy and all that stuff, but when the bell rings, you don't have to do Festus, but you want to get more serious. That is the example that I was trying to remember. Okay, Danhausen. Javier, what do you think? He was on again today.
They used him well.
Yep.
That's pretty much what I was expecting. So
Yes.
I feel like I was trying not to copy Todd Martin on the fix, but that's because I missed him. I missed him on Monday. So I loved all just immediately pawning him off on the Miz, which was great. He's there to annoy people like the Miz, and it worked. I loved his list of demands. For some reason, he came in a crate. Now he has demands. Okay, we'll work it.
Yeah.
5 minutes. That's fine.
You didn't want WWE to ruin this or reinvent it. Danhausen just knows how to be Danhausen, and I thought that it was well done. I like what I get a kick out of. There's a lot of things I enjoy about Danhausen, but he looks at Nick Aldis and goes, "If you're the boss here, as you say, you can get me this Hall of Fame induction and a mentor who can take Danhausen straight to the top." Like his little aside of skepticism that Nick is really in charge is hilarious. I mean, he is that's not in contention. Why? But the way he delivers a line is just he's so much more overconfident than he should be in such a deadpan way. That totally works. And then his excitement about working with Miz, and he says, "Make me WWE champion and get me a TV show." It's just he just recalibrates his demands. He's like, "Oh yeah, Miz can do this for me." I don't know. It works.
Yeah, he says stuff that he just expects are going to happen, and he's knows that they're going to happen. He just expects it. Not now. I'm expecting him to be world champion. So
Yep. Danhausen Hall of Fame 2026 says good fella. Powder Repeat says we have to get Danhausen and Chelsea Green together. Yes, I brought that up. Earlier in the week. I think maybe on the round table after the pay-per-view for VIP members last Saturday night after Elimination Chamber. Yes, Chelsea Green interacting with Danhausen. You should save that. Build it up. Get Danhausen even more over than he is, and then have that moment come. That would be wonderful.
Oh man, him and Ethan Page would be amazing.
Yes, for sure. Real Legend says, "I like how Danhausen says you should take my curses seriously. Look at Dom. What happened to him?" Miz played well too. Miz played off of him.
He delivered that line pretty seriously too. So
I know. Yep. Yeah, I like people who just it's just what Danhausen does works, and WWE's not messing with it. What happened Saturday was weird and didn't get well received, but whatever. As long as they put him backstage interacting with wrestlers the way he did on Monday and Friday, we're good.
Yeah, and I heard they made it work on Monday by joking about it. So
exactly. Yep. Definitely. Anything else stand out on the show you want to talk about, Javier?
No, but I might have to start watching TNA again since apparently Rosemary is trying to resurrect Allie the Bunny. So I'm super happy for that. So I might start watching it again because I love that storyline.
Yes.
Speaking of storylines that you remember.
Totally. So I threw to you for anything, but I don't want to save the worst until last. So I will ask about before that, Ilya Dragunov saying that he's inspired by his mom. He does not want a title shot if he isn't on a winning streak. Really just tapped into his own personal story. And it was, he is just as earnest. He is so Dudley Do-Right. It's just uncompromisingly principled in a way that, isn't going to work for more than one character, at a time in wrestling. But man, he's not budging. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I still haven't made up in my mind of his character, because then he's also at the same time I like violence and hurting and pain. What's the line, like, pain is fun or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever they're saying. So it's kind of weird. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it, because I feel like there's a little bit of heelish elements that or elements that could go heel. So the only thing is it kind of feels like he's kind of stuck right now, waiting for them to get to a specific moment to do whatever they're going to do with him next. For people for Eater stuff.
I don't know if it contradicts what. I don't think we see things differently, but I think I would frame it differently as this is not a holding pattern or filler. It's essential to underline who he is. He is a man of principle. And yes, there's the pain catchphrase, but he doesn't want to be gifted a title match. And now, can that eventually trigger a heel turn? Yes, but in a way like Sammy is, the journey Sammy's on. You don't want to tell the same type of story. Somebody principled, it's not working for them, so now they're unprincipled, and now there's heat. But man, I really enjoy just somebody going, I don't want a title shot unless I have earned it through wins and losses. I don't want to be gifted it. My mom would not be proud of me for doing it. Powder of Pete says they broke the mold with Dragunov. I think we could use more of it in the world, and more people, instead of the toxic masculinity of don't admit you're wrong and whatever, all the nonsense of that whole movement. I'd like to just see people not think it's lame to be honorable and do the right thing and say so proudly. And I don't know. So, Gary Francis said, Dragunov is the Ned Stark of WWE in terms of honor. There you go. Okay. Carmelo Hayes, open challenge. Dragunov still bowing out. So we got Theodel Dr. Wagner Jr., U.S. title open challenge. Yikes. I wrote in my TV report at PWTorch.com. I hope everybody's checking out my TV reports to catch up on shows or see what I'm having to say about them. I wrote, check your biases if you're going to contend that went well. That was like a couple spots were bad. The match, 2 minutes in, the match fell apart, and I wrote this. This match fell apart, completely fell apart 2 minutes in, as badly as, honestly, any sequence in United States televised pro wrestling history. Now, my memory's probably weak, and I'm thankful that I don't recall matches falling apart worse than this. But, oh, my God, they were not on the same page. The time just froze. They looked at each other. They botched a move, and then there was this awkward thing of Carmelo kind of shifted Wagner to the right a little bit while he was tied up in the rope, so then he could hit his next move. He nudged him. It was just terrible. And then there was the most listless kick out of all time by Wagner Jr. He was being pinned, and he kicked out. It was as listless and just awful as any. It's just disqualifying. Like, there's no high spot anybody could do to get me to give them an above average rating after that kick out. I mean, you have to look like you're trying to kick out. It was okay a lot of the time, but Javier, I don't know. The crowd didn't know how to react to that sequence at the 2 minute mark. It was weird because
it kind of almost felt like I've seen some AAA matches, and some of them just don't go well, and this felt like it was straight from one of those, where it didn't feel like he was going to business for himself really, but more like they just couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, because there was one sequence that went well, and I'm like, oh, that was a good sequence. I'm thinking this is one of the few times that I'm actually thinking how did they build this match, and how did they? But then by then, things were starting to, they were off they were in the wrong places, and it just got kind of messy. So at that point, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of feels like they're not. It almost feels like they got the wrong script. That the Wagner Jr. got the English script, and Carmelo Hayes got the Spanish script, and they're just not understanding what's going on.
Or somebody was arrogant and thought they could call it in the ring, and they couldn't. Or yeah. And sometimes mistakes happen, but I mean when you bring somebody in and it's just that much of a mess, that's bad. If this was a taped collision, for instance, that would not have made air. Like they would have just cut the whole match, or certainly done surgery on it, like they did WWE did back in the day when they taped stuff ahead. Powder Pete says Lucha Styles more dangerous than other styles, but when it's on point, it's beautiful. Too bad I thought these guys would gel. They definitely did not. Derek goes, yeah, this wasn't the Continental Classic with Mox. The match should be shown for what not to do on a live televised match. Standard Deviation says, this is one match I'd actually be interested in seeing on WWE Unreal. Yeah, film the backstage reaction to that one.
Because that was actually my literal thought was, does Wagner know where the camera is? Because I know that you wrestle towards, in a specific way because where cameras and stuff are. I'm like, does he know how to do that? But then commentary mentioned that he had a stint in NXT. I was watching, so I'm like, okay, well maybe he knows, and so that was where I was like, does he know what he's doing in a WWE ring? And then like when stuff started going wrong, I'm like, maybe he doesn't.
Goodfellas says, so many good workers in AAA. Why Dr. Wagner? And Real Legend, when I say it's the worst sequence in United States television history, he says, Undertaker and Goldberg want a word with you, Wade. But we can run them on split screen. And I bet I didn't say it was worse. I said it went as badly as. So it's tied for the worst. It was bad.
There was nobody. Alicia Fox one in early NXT. I forgot who she was wrestling. Mm-hmm. That is the worst match I've ever seen.
And this was not the worst match I've ever seen. It was the worst sequence on live American television. It was as bad as anything. I don't say worst because that means nothing was worse, or that it was worse than anything. I'm saying it was tied as bad as anything. Anyway. All right. JC Scoopy says, Road Dogg, Brian James must have booked that match before he left. Yeah, sabotage. All right, cool. Javier, anything else jump out? Chat, your last chance to jump in if you have a topic you want us to bring up. I know I already threw to you for that, but I'm just seeing if there's anything else I left off. Oh, we had Kiana James and Kiana James and Julia were out there, and they had their match against Charlotte and Alexa, and we got some mic work from Julia that if you close your eyes, it's Asuka. I mean, they're doing the same kind of guttural. I don't know. It's not my favorite.
She said something. She didn't call her Baka. I got to find out what she was calling them. Yeah. Because it was longer for the first person, it's longer for the second one. Dropped one of the words for Charlotte, I think, and then like really went off on Bliss. So I'm really curious to see the translation of what she said. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Javier. Always great having you on.
Happy to be on.
Excellent. VIP membership, I've mentioned it a few times on this show. I'll throw a graphic up for our YouTube viewers and talk to our podcast audience about it. PWTorch.com/GoVIP. It gives you details on all the ways to sign up through Patreon, which syncs up with Spotify, by the way, using your native Apple Podcast app and your Apple account to unlock our commercial-free VIP shows, along with all the VIP exclusive podcasts like the Nikki's Club, Nick Barbetti's doing a great job covering WWE on that show every week now for VIP members, formerly of Nick and Tom's Excellent. Now I'm forgetting the name of the show. It was an Excellent Adventure. Intercontinental Adventure, of course. And also just a customizable feed when you sign up with a full VIP memberships. You can subscribe to various feeds, individual shows or clusters of shows by theme. And you also gain ad-free access to our ad-free website, streaming on demand of our entire library of podcasts and hundreds of retro radio shows from the 90s. Really cool stuff. That ad-free website's really nice, both on mobile and desktop, to keep up on our coverage too. So check it out. Full details at pwtorch.com/govip. If you are part of the Patreon ecosystem and really are just interested in podcasts, that's probably the best place to start. You can get a 7-day free trial to see what it's like. Go to Patreon and search PWTorch VIP, or go to patreon.com/PWTorch VIP. If you search PWTorch in your podcast app, if you're using the native Apple Podcast app on iPhone, you'll see a charcoal gray logo pop up. That gives you free samples of VIP shows if you subscribe to that for free, and then you can unlock the VIP exclusives. And you can also get a 3-day free trial through Apple using your Apple account on that. So check it out, everybody. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you all next time. And stay tuned for the credits, because people sneak in some comments at the end, and I throw them on the screen after my sign-off. It's become a tradition. So on the YouTube side of things, look for that.